Thank you to Carlos Kareem Whittam for providing us with this welcome. I want to hold space and extend a special welcome, in no particular order, to all Black people, African Americans, Africans, immigrants, Muslims, refugees, transgender, non-binary, gender-expansive folks, and gender non-conforming folks, femmes, queer folks, all people of African descent, undocumented folks, people living with disabilities, both visible and invisible, to renters, low-income folks, those who have been displaced or gentrified, those who are far from home, whether by choice or circumstance, those who have to send money back home, to all survivors, mothers and primary caregivers, those previously incarcerated, teachers, and a big shout out to all the organizers here on this call today. Thank you for all the hard work that you do. We see all of you and know that all parts of you are welcome here. Thank you to the Native American Youth and Family Center for providing us with this land acknowledgement. We would like to respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we are gathering today is the traditional homelands of a diverse array of indigenous tribes and bands. Multnomah County rests on traditional village sites of the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River, and which is now home to a vibrant Native community representing over 400 different tribal nations. We recognize Indigenous peoples as the traditional stewards of this land and acknowledge the enduring relationship between the land and the people since time immemorial. We would like to respectfully acknowledge the areas that were once home to thriving, connected Black communities. The fundamental state of settler colonialism still exists today. Oregon was founded as a white utopian state, and colonialism has hit this area hard, and is still doing great damage in the form of gentrification and the displacement of Black people, sometimes as far as outside of their home state. Since Black people were forcibly brought to the United States in 1619 and enslaved, which was 400 years ago, up until today, oppression continues. We acknowledge the twinned dehumanizations of Indigenous land and Black bodies that were turned into property in the name of U.S. imperialism. It is also important to move beyond acknowledgement and reflect on your own history that brought you to this place. This displacement acknowledgement and the land acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to beginning the process of working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. There is a lot of work to be done. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the 2024 Reimagine Public Safety Conversation for Black Portland, hosted by Imagine Black and produced by Labs. My name is Joy Elise Davis. My pronouns are she and they. I am a Black femme. I have dark brown eyes. My hair is blonde and I have my locks at a nice shoulder length. I'm wearing an oversized purple sequins suit today with a white blouse. I also have some oversized glasses on, and I'm wearing Black shoes. As Imagine Black's president and executive director, I am super, super honored and excited for this conversation. And thank you for being with us. So this conversation is going to unapologetically center Black issues. This event is for the entire Black community, especially those who feel disengaged with politics. This conversation is narrowly focused on public safety and offers a unique chance to hold candidates accountable to the needs and the demands of progressive Black Portlanders. During this conversation, you're going to learn about an amazing candidate and hold some space for accountability. I want to note, though, this is not a conversation that will automatically lead to an endorsement. We're going to be doing that a little bit later after filming, but really this is an opportunity to listen in and learn and see how it connects to the demands and the needs of the Black community. Before I dive into the format, I would love to welcome our special guest today, our commissioner. What I'm going to ask that you do, if you could say your name, your pronouns, and then briefly describe yourself. So anything around skin tone, hair, clothes, nails, anything of note for our visually impaired. And I'll let you go ahead.
Great, thank you. I'm really honored to be here. My name is Carmen Rubio. I'm a Portland City Commissioner, and I go by she, her, aya pronouns. And I am a Latina, short woman with dark brown hair, shoulder length, with cat eye glasses on, with olive skin, and I think I have lip gloss on, shiny lips today.
Thank you so much. Would you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about you and what brought you here. Why are you excited to run, and anything else you want to share with us?
Thanks. I'll share a little bit by starting with my family, because that's typically how I identify really strongly with my family roots. So I am originally from Hillsboro, Oregon. I grew up and was raised in that area. My grandparents and my parents both came to this country as migrant farm workers. My mom is one of 11 kids, and my dad is one of 6. And both of them had similar trajectories, different ways of getting here. But my mom's family is from Durango, Mexico, and it came up through the Southwest into New Mexico, into Northern California, and then ending up in rural Washington County. Similar trajectory for my dad's family as well. They both picked every fruit and vegetable you can think of before finally staying permanently in Western Washington County. And so I grew up always around a lot of family, and we were definitely did not have a lot of money. We were the working poor, and in just one generation, we were able to move into the middle class through. We were able to thankfully get some good paying jobs, some union jobs, some jobs that were through advocacy and education that allowed us to move forward a little bit. And so I was the first in my family to go to college, and went to University of Oregon, where that's really where I became politicized. It was the first time, and I was very naive, I just have to say, very naive. First time ever took a Chicano studies class in my first term as a freshman, and it just blew my mind in terms of my sense of identity and confidence, and finally realizing, and this sounds corny or cheesy, but literally books written on my community were things that I had never seen before in my life. So for me, it was a real life changing moment where things crystallized around my sense of self and the history of my community and other communities in this country, and how through advocacy and hard work and working together, we've actually built this country. And so following that time, fast forward to coming to Portland, my first political job was working for a Latina who was running for county commissioner. And she, I volunteered so much on her campaign that she hired me. And then I worked for her until, moving on to the next one, that I worked for Commissioner Nick Fish, Mayor Tom Potter, and then left to run Latino Network. And it was there that I worked for probably the next 11 years, helping to build power in our community, helping to create programs and pathways that enabled community to have that sense of community self-determination, have that sense of ability to create their own futures and be a part of this community in a more meaningful way. And so after spending some time there, we went through the very hard Trump years, which were horrid for all of us, and in particularly communities that look like yours and mine. And out of that time, I got really angry, and I felt what more can I do to sort of be in a place where we can actually be more effectual and change than what we're doing now. I am privileged enough to have a degree. I am privileged enough that my parents and grandparents worked hard so that I could be in this position. I need to do something harder for all of us. So the hardest thing I could think of, because I am an introvert, is I ran for public office. And so that's sort of what kind of got me to this place. And I'm still not, someone that's ever going to be flashy or I'm not a flashy drama person. That is not me. I'm not a political performer. I just want to work hard and solve problems and hold a vision for justice, for inclusion, and for participatory democracy for our whole community. So that's really what led me here. And this job in particular is really hard, but we need someone to hold that vision for all of us, not just some of us in Portland.
Yes. Thank you so much. I can't stress how thrilled and happy I am to spend some time with you today. And I know for a lot of viewers, I just wanted to note, not everyone prioritized this. And I just want to thank you for spending some time focused on the Black community and hearing it definitely aligns with your values. So this makes sense. So thank you for the time in this space. Let me tell you really quickly, and for those listening and watching, what our format's going to be. I have 4 questions for you. I'm really excited to dive into it. We'll have some follow-up dialogue, and then I have my favorite part, which I love telling folks, my rapid fire, my little fun moment. We'll get into it. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but within that format, you can only say yes, no, or pass. But I'm excited about these 4 questions. We're going to dive into it and learn a little bit more about public safety and all the work that you've been doing and hopefully will continue to do in the future. So let's get into it. Okay, so for my first question, I want to take us back to 2020, if that's okay, viewers and listeners. So let's go back, 2020. Thousands of people marched and protested in the city of Portland, demanding racial justice. Some protesters called for police reform. Some called for defunding to drastically shrink the size of the police budget, while others called for complete abolition. Nearly 4 years later, some elected officials still think of police response when they hear the phrase public safety. For Imagine Black, we believe that definition is too narrow. So my first question to you is, what is your definition of community safety? And what are your plans to reimagine public safety?
That's a great question, and it's something that I've been actively working to broaden that definition since I've been in office. Community safety, to me, is beyond just our first responders. They are certainly part of that definition, but community safety means the presence of feeling safe and secure for everyone. It means no matter whether you're housed or unhoused, where you live, what you look like, what language you speak, or who you love, we all deserve to feel a sense of safety in our community, and we all deserve to know that our city has a vested interest in us being safe as well, and that we are, as a city, are responsive to where the community is at in that moment. And so for me, that also means getting down 911 calls. We do want to make sure that we have enough first responders so that when things happen, emergencies happen, or we need officers to fight crimes, that's we have that capacity there. But we have to broaden that to be more of to include upstream strategies as well. And that's why I'm very, very invested in things that we know work, like making sure that we eliminate poverty, that we have educational access for all, that we are making sure that we have affordable or free childcare, that preschool education is available for everyone equitably, and that people can afford to live and work in the city of Portland. All these, and housing is available for everyone. All these components create the conditions for the presence of safety and also the presence of the ability to self-determine people's future without having the burden, the emotional burden, the physiological burden of these disparities and obstacles that we see right now. I also think that we need to think in new ways, like Portland Street Response is a part of community safety, differentiated responses for different reasons. Youth violence prevention programs are another need. And when I first started, right out of the gate, I worked very hard and actively built a coalition on council to invest $4 million into youth violence prevention options. So we need to not devalue strategies that are traditionally seen as only community-based. They have merit and they work for a reason, and we need to start investing in things that we see proven in the community. So,
Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate hearing a very holistic approach to it. Thank you. You mentioned something during your introduction that was really exciting to me. It was about participatory democracy, and I'm curious, knowing that in 2020 there was so much attention to the budget, or so many folks had a lot to say, and maybe this was their first time ever trying to get involved in civic engagement. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some plans or just your vision for how community members can get involved if elected as mayor, and kind of what do you see as the participatory vision?
yeah, thank you. hands down, one of the best ways to look at where we want to put our intention and our resources, obviously through community budgeting, right? Another way is also participating in policies that come up before council. So those are two big levers. And in our new form of government, we're going to have different kinds of opportunities. Things are still being formed. And until we know who our new council is, our next council, they're going to have a huge hand in shaping what those city council meetings will look like, when they will be held, where they will be held. My hope is that they will be held in the evenings when more people can attend that are working people, like the majority of us. And also that we have the ability to engage differently with different languages, that we have the ability to ensure we have enough public communication time, because in my experience at the start of council, when we have those signups for public communication, sometimes that is the most direct, cutting through all the barriers, opportunity that residents have to actually look in the eyes of the electeds and actually say something. And sometimes it can lead, like I think the pressure of the moment, and that it's actually being filmed and people are streaming. It's a real opportunity to cut through and actually get either answers or capture the attention of the elected staff and get answers or get something moving right away. Not in all cases, but in a lot of times, I know that we like to offer that when we can. So that, how council is structured, the district offices, those are all really exciting opportunities that have yet to take shape. So it matters who gets elected in those seats. The second thing I would say is under the mayor's purview, one of the single biggest changes that I want to make and start moving on, and thankfully we've raised the issue up enough since I've been here that they're finally actually studying it right now, is moving from a 1-year budget to a 2-year budget. And I think that is critically important because as we see sort of at the state legislature, having a 2-year cycle, yes, there's a compression of pressure and tension around that cycle. However, what it does is it gives the city and community the runway to do more planning, to do more advocacy, to do more studying of outcomes, to actually see if something is proving out, if that investment is proving out or not. It gives you enough time on either end. Right now, when we finish the budget, it's time to start the budget up again. So we have no real, in my opinion, thoughtful, measured analysis to actually look at the outcomes, right? Because we're already planning for the next cycle, and it doesn't give us enough runway, but it also doesn't give us enough ability. If we need to pivot, then what do we do and how do we do it so that we're doing no harm to anyone, right? So I think that the 2-year budget will give us tremendous opportunity to actually spend more time in community, do more actually community education about budgeting, which I think we suck at right now. I think that part of what we do, we're not doing community education at all. I mean, I think we do some things that we have the capacity and we try to do, and we do 3 budget forums, but that's not really cutting it at all. It's really who can show up at that one time. And from what I see, folks that come and testify a lot are folks that already know the system. And we're not really capturing what a lot more of the folks in the neighborhoods and in this community think, that maybe don't know how to access those things. So I think that runway would give us more time to actually have more people with lived experience, more people who aren't connected in some way, to actually have their say about what values. It also gives the city time to adequately explain what the trade-offs of the different investments are as well, so that people understand what they're advocating for and what the trade-off might be, and if that's worth it to them.
Thank you so much for that. This is the first time I've heard such a really bold and amazing idea to educate community to be able to get involved in this process that sometimes does feel very overwhelming.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing a little bit about opportunities to change the way that folks can even participate too. So thank you for saying that. I know there's been some conversations over the years about, like, we have to move to the evening, or do we have it in the east side? Like, what does it look like?
That's right.
It's been difficult. So I definitely appreciate that. A question that we've been asking and talking to folks about around community safety, and hearing your vision about how it's not just for the first responders, that we all have a hand in it. Do you have any ideas, or are you thinking a little bit about what that would look like for each bureau, or even maybe within each kind of division? I know there's like new things underneath the deputies now, and yeah, what would it look like for folks to take a hand in community safety, or at least start using the language? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the city has definitely embraced the language around community safety. And some folks don't quite understand the huge distinctions between community and public safety. So I say both so that people everywhere knows exactly what we're talking about, the encapsulation of the totality. But I also think that there's a new program that is happening now and has been maybe for I would say at least over the last year, that holds a lot of promise. And I think it was piloted out at first through the mayor's office, but it's like a problem solving program. And I think actually it is called Problem Solvers, unless they have a new name now. But they sort of do like, have you heard about, or it's called Portland Solutions, that's what it's called. And so what they do is they take an issue that has multiple challenges and complexities, and sort of does sort of like a SWOT analysis around that issue, and they pull in the different bureaus and the different folks together to address collectively and holistically that issue. And sometimes it could be a community safety issue in a part of town, or it could be the gamut, really. But what I have noticed as a result of a couple of those things, it's taken some situations where there was maybe high conflict, not a lot of trust. It could be around siting of safe rest villages, or it could be around some other issue. But they have the ability and the time to actually bring people from different corners together and work through the problem. We should be doing that anyway, but it's finally, we have the right people in the right roles. And I think ultimately that would be my theme around having a community safety vision, is the right people in the right roles, because we need all of it. Another one is to really fully capacitate Portland Street Response to be the model that it was intended to be. It has gone through political upheaval. It has been batted about like a political piñata among different commissioners, which is really disappointing to see, because there's a clear community need. And I think that we just need to capacitate it to where it needs to be, and it needs to serve the full city and 24 hours a day. And I think that we would see the outcomes that we know that it could have. Budget and funding is a whole other issue right now, but we need to hold the vision, and we can't be talking about like restricting it or diminishing it, because it was clearly something that filled a very specific gap and need that we still have today. And that's why I advocated very strongly for moving it out of under Renee Gonzalez's purview in connection to the Fire Bureau, because it shouldn't be competing for resources in the Fire Bureau. It should be seen complementary. And if it's not going to get the political attention and support it needs, then it needs to be somewhere where it will.
Thank you so much. You're giving me perfect segue into question 2, so I love it. Let me set the stage for folks. We can talk a little bit more about the Portland Street Response, but thank you so much for setting that stage. So in 2020, Portlanders voted overwhelmingly to institute the Portland Street Response, an alternative emergency response call for vulnerable Portlanders experiencing crisis. Despite, like mentioned, the popularity and the expectation that it would eventually be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like mentioned, it's been under attack for 2 years, resulting in slashed budgets and slowed implementation. I would love to continue to talk about it. Just for the scene, I'll say the question, but you already started getting into it. Where do you see the Portland Street Response within the context of public safety? What are your plans to ensure the future of the Portland Street Response and its services?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And I'm glad that you're elevating it as a critical issue, because it is. And I do see it as an essential part of the public safety and community safety system. They see themselves as part of that as well. And I do believe that today, where we're at today, it was very different than, a few years ago or even last year, but I do see that there is more alignment, and there is a vision for ensuring its viability and its the ability for it to continue moving into the next generation of leadership here at the city. I do support, like I mentioned before, I really was in support and advocated very strongly with the mayor to make that move of where it would go. So currently it has moved from under one commissioner in that public safety portfolio into the community safety office, which is a shared office under commissioner and the mayor currently. I'm trying to track right now. But anyway, that move is good because now it is in an area where there is actually some innovation going on, not only around PSR, but also around Office of Youth Violence Prevention as well, and really finally prioritizing gun violence where it needs to be with the investments that it needs to be. And we're making some progress on those investments as well. So I'm hopeful for what that will do. What I'm worried about, though, is that we need to have the leadership in place so that, once again, these offices don't suffer from the mindset that it is expendable or that it is replaceable with other kinds of things. We need all of it. And this is a really critical part, and we're seeing it. We have 30% reduction in gun violence since those investments were made. So my hope is that we have a council that continues to balance that, and I would really strongly encourage the community to tell your new city council what's important. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. For those just joining us who are listening and watching, thank you so much for being here. We're talking about Reimagine Public Safety and diving in a little bit into the Portland Street response, and really excited to hear about this vision that you just laid out. And particularly, there's been some chatter around making sure that this budget is protected. So thank you for doing that labor and continue to advocating for such a successful program. And I think when there's been lots of conversations about like what to do. I know we were in a DOJ settlement around mental health in particular, and I know that for a lot of folks, they feel like this program is not as successful. And for us, we think about the folks their lives are being saved, and even
Yes.
if it's important. And so thank you for that. I want to open up, see if there's anything else you want to mention about it before we move on.
Yeah, thanks for that. I do want to mention too that for folks who have that critique that it hasn't been successful, it's because we haven't seen it operated at its fullest capacity yet. So you can't really just halfway start something and then say it's not successful. You have to actually capacitate it to the model that we expected it to be, and then see. Like let's see what that says then. But to truncate it that way, we're doing a disservice, and it's not truthful. The other thing I'll just say too is that I do support, there are some changes that some of the staff, I've been on a few ride-alongs, and they want a little bit more latitude to do some things like transport folks. Right now, they're not able to because it's seen as the role of a different kind of responder. But we have to kind of revisit that so that they can be more effective in their jobs. It does not make sense for Portland Street Response folks to be dispatched somewhere to work with some individuals and get them to a place where they're ready to go to shelter, let's say, and then they have to call an Uber or a Lyft and wait there sometimes forever, for like upwards towards an hour, or sometimes people cancel when they learn that where they're coming and what they're going to do. So it's really frustrating. It's frustrating for PSR, it's frustrating for the person that they're trying to serve, and it's not helping anybody in that way. So I hope that we do, and we will, under me, we will look at all those avenues that we can make them more effectual in their roles.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, and I can't imagine the resources we would save in terms of cost to be able to implement this model.
I know.
Yeah, talk about we need more budget. Like this is a way to be more effective. Thank you so much on that. I want to talk a little bit about question 3. Let's get into the next one. This is a long one, so bear with me as I read a little bit. But Portland, along with other cities across the nation, is experiencing a rise in houselessness driven by the lack of affordable housing. The ongoing COVID pandemic has economically wrecked entire communities, devastated households, and a significant and continued lack of access to mental health services, including healthcare-centered substance use disorder treatment. Despite credible research showing that police sweeps of houseless encampments don't solve houselessness and fail to lead to effective housing solutions, city resources continue to support this harmful practice. So my question to you is, how will you prevent the displacement of houseless communities and elevate real solutions that result in vulnerable Portlanders finding and maintaining housing?
Yeah, this is one of the crises of our lifetimes here in Portland, and we've experienced so many things, and the pandemic really was a stress test of all of our systems, and we are failing in those systems. And some of those system failures are not things that just happened in the last, 2 election cycles. This is chronic, decades of disinvestment in our communities, not and in housing in particular. Not just locally we get left holding the bag, but by federal and state disinvestment over time. And that's happening everywhere across the country. So we are not alone in that. It's particularly hit our city hard. And right now we need to look at real solutions. And I will just be saying emphatically, some of my opponents think that Band-Aids and quick fixes and shortcuts are going to solve homelessness. Tent bans do not solve homelessness. Arresting people out of homelessness does not work. And also shortcuts and quick fixes, of congregate shelters, those are old school tactics for homelessness. Those are not going to work. We know what works. It's just putting in the hard work to build the system of shelter to services to housing. And that's just what we need to do. And so, I know that some people are trying to give people quick answers. So, because everybody is feeling the urgency of need, and we're seeing poverty on our streets and in crisis in real time, and it makes people uncomfortable. It should make us uncomfortable. We should not normalize this. This is not normal. And so until we actually fix at the root causes of the system, we should not be doing anything that further displaces people. Tent bans just move people from one location to another location, or under a bridge, or in another doorway. These are things that we're trying to move in unsafe areas. We're trying to move away from that. So the real hard work is just rolling up our sleeves and creating that system. So it's more temporary alternative shelters, like with services on site. There's been a study that shows now that we are actually having success with that model. The small homes with privacy, a place for pets, and a place for possessions, showing that respect for people as they make that transition, and then also making sure that we have good and sufficient mental health services and addiction treatment services that are ready and right there. No waiting in line. No telling somebody, oh, here's an appointment, come back next week or in a month. Come on. We need to make sure that other end of the system is holding up their promise to the community. And that's really at the state and the county level. And I'm going to press our county friends on that. They need to get that stuff together and get it going, right? So that we can do our part too. And then the third thing is there will always be a segment of our community that is going to need permanent supportive housing. And we just need to accept that that is what we have to do to take care of our most vulnerable. So investing continuously in permanent supportive housing will ensure that we have people who are ready to finally receive housing after their treatment and supports and wraparound services, that they stay housed. Otherwise, they're repeating this cycle of being back on the street, and that's not helpful to them in their lives, and it's not answering, the crisis before us. So it's not rocket science. We know what we need to do. We just need to invest in these systems and expand it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. There's so much in there. I appreciate hearing in particular that jailing folks won't automatically get them out. It shouldn't be rocket science, but As we're filming, just for the folks listening and watching, we're filming in Old Town Portland, which is usually like the media space to focus in on. And I've seen folks that I talk with every day who are devastated by having their possessions taken away from them. I'm seeing wheelchairs being taken away constantly and things that they need, like birth certificates and things that are getting destroyed and lost. And I also appreciate and love to dive a little bit deeper about how to work with the county and other spaces who hold a big, large part of it. Hearing and reading from credible news sources that folks are dying in jail due to not getting the support that they need. Personally, I once saw a video of a healthcare provider and police officer arguing back and forth about what to do. In the meantime, someone passed away. As they were trying to move them to the shelter. It broke my heart, and we need real solutions and not these quick, like you said, Band-Aid fixes. Can you tell us a little bit about some of what that partnership looks like? I know we have the joint, Office of House of Services, but I also know that sometimes from the outside, it looks like it's just like I don't know, it feels like a game of tennis. Or like ping pong. We're just trying to figure out who to place blame on. And what does it look like to work in partnership?
Yeah, I think what I know is what it looks like to work in partnership is actually having active conversation, checking in before assumptions are made. Clearly there are going to be times where we're going to disagree on strategy. That's normal. That is politics. But we can always find agreement around a value, or at least that's what we should be trying to do. We should be trying to set some high goals and high values that are foundational to what we're trying to do. And I think that has been missing from the conversation until more recently. And I would also say that there is finger pointing and there is bomb throwing sometimes. I don't like that kind of performative politics. I do think there is a time for accountability, for sure. I also know that you can't always bring in your hammer unless I want to trust that you tried to pick up the phone and talk to me first, or that I tried to call you first. And I think those things drives wedges between what might otherwise be a more productive alliance or alignment around a common goal. So we need leaders who know how to work with people, who can pick up the phone and work alongside on some of these tough issues, but also hold each other accountable when one of us is not doing our end. And also we need to have some grace to allow us to pivot when we need to get it done. And we shouldn't be afraid to try new things. Just because it's the way that we've always done it, whether it's the city or the county, then we're not doing our jobs. It's our jobs to try and find new solutions. It's our job to try and stretch each other and be responsive to the moment. So in that way, I see that there's opportunity. And despite what people might see right now, I do think there's the majority of the county and the majority of the city who do want to find that alignment, even though it might look like it at a high level. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I know the folks in our membership, we talk a lot about this like political theater that we feel like sometimes it's a distraction from what we actually need to be focused on. And it's real people's lives, and it shouldn't be used in this way. So thank you for bringing that in. There's a second part to my question that I would love to talk a little bit about. Not only is sweeps very devastating and traumatic for folks, like you mentioned, it's not effective. It's also expensive. Do you have any plans or ideas of how you would maybe reallocate that money to something else?
Well, I think for me, as a commissioner who only oversees a certain part of the city, I don't have enough information on all the things yet. So what I want to do as soon as I get in there is really to have the ability, and it will feel amazing, trust me, to finally have access to all parts of information and to do the big look across the enterprise. I don't have that as one commissioner over a small, discrete set of bureaus, right? Or not small, they're not small bureaus, but over a discrete set of bureaus right now. So I think looking at the big picture is important. Also looking at those upstream things. If we can get ahead of housing, longer term, we can get ahead of housing. If we can spur more housing production, if we can do more things to reduce the time it takes to build and the cost to build, and provide incentives to build more affordable housing, my hope is that we would reduce the need for houselessness. We would reduce the need to do anything like sweeps or cleans or stuff, that people wouldn't be impacted that way. I do believe that there is some promise in the ability to have more of these temporary alternative kinds of shelter, because they provide more dignity to people, they provide more privacy to people. And if we can couple that with on-site services and actual on-the-ground caseworkers or street outreach folks. And I was talking to Shannon Singleton the other day, and she said that they used to have them and they haven't had them, and we need to bring them back. I believe with those combination of things, we'll see more people taking up services, and they won't have to be camping on the street. So I'm hopeful for that time, and that's where my intention is, and I'm hoping to see if we can work in partnership with the county to get there.
Yeah, thank you so much for that vision. I have another question just related to housing a little bit. I know there's been some different thoughts from maybe opponents or even folks running for city council around the fact that maybe we can't do more in terms of building housing. I don't necessarily agree with that, but they're like, we've done all we can. I know. And then, well, I think there's something more to talk about in terms of there are going to be folks who need affordable housing as well. But also, what does it look like to stabilize the folks who are currently in housing? I think a lot about some of the folks that we serve within the Black community who are constantly being pushed out of neighborhood after neighborhood. Yes. They're not able to stay, even with some of the caps that we have, can't afford to live in Portland anymore. And sometimes they try to stretch out and stay into it's because they want to be close to community. Yeah. And then sometimes they have to leave Oregon completely because they can't find somewhere to stay. And sometimes they have to end up on the street. So I'm curious, knowing that I think we talk a lot about the housing bureaus and things when it comes to houselessness, but think about economic development too, and thinking about raising the price. So just thinking about Prosper Portland and what role they could take in this. Would love to hear just your thoughts about it.
Yeah, I believe that Prosper Portland definitely had a challenging charge because it had a history of really, decimating neighborhoods and leaving people behind. And so in this Portland of today, they wanted to do things differently, and they're doing things actively differently. They're investing in our communities differently and more. But I also think it's also a time to also maybe recalibrate again up. And so this is the perfect time to do it. We're going to have a new council. We're going to have a new mayor. We have 2 new TIF districts on deck to start. I should say two regional areas of TIF districts in East Portland and also downtown Portland again. So what lessons have we learned, and how are we going to apply them differently? And I think that was the premise from the beginning. And so there was a very intentional committees put together to really grapple with these issues, and they've come out with some proposed ideas of boundaries, et cetera. But it is all going to be about the implementation, and it's all going to be about who is at the table to make sure that we're investing in the right things and we're doing it the right way, and that it's exactly going to be community driven, and by community, actual community, not folks that have different kinds of interests that happen to be identified as community for convenience, right? So we have another opportunity to see if we as a city can get it right. I feel like it's a big test for us. So that's going to be the proof for us in that regard. But I also think that as a city, we have to stop just pinning or expecting Prosper to be the end-all be-all for ECDEV. It is a development agency. That is it was literally the name, right? And I'm glad it's rebranded. But I feel like we need a broader strategy also around ECDEV that touches multiple bureaus, not just Prosper Portland, which actually has its own board. But how can we create an economic development priority across the city enterprise that's working in concert with Prosper Portland? So I'm interested in really building out more ECDEV capacity in the city side properly. And so I don't know how I'll do it yet, but I like the concept, and I feel it's a natural evolution of where we need to be. to meet the Portland needs of today. And that includes work with small businesses, micro enterprise, entrepreneurs. I mean, the Pitch Black and the Pitch Latino work is incredible. How do we scale things up? How do we, create more ancillary programs out of some of that work? I mean, we are a city of makers and entrepreneurs and creatives. We need to elevate that more and bring that prosperity back into community. So I think there's opportunity, but first and foremost, lessons learned. We have to look at like what didn't work and make sure we never repeat those lessons again. I will point also to the promise of Albina Vision Trust and what that brings. It's a whole new model for how community self-determination intersects with support from their local municipality and also state and federal government. And they are bringing millions and billions of dollars into this region that we would not have had otherwise. That is a game changer for Portland. And I hope that electeds and people who are used to being at the table sit up and take notice, because that is investment, that is city transformation. It's like catalytic for Portland. So in that way, I think we have things to learn from ABT.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for bringing them into the room. Shout out to Winta and the crew. They're quite amazing. And for folks who may not know, if I'm not mistaken, the mayor gets to appoint the board for the Prosper Portland. So quite a lot of power and opportunity there. I'll circle back on that I'll circle back to that in a little bit. But you mentioned TIF district, and for folks who may not know, tax increment financing. We call it urban renewal on the streets, so to speak. It's triggering for a lot of folks. And I know you put together a group of folks, particularly quite a lot of African Americans, many of them who have been harmed directly by the work of Prosper Portland when they were Portland Development Commission in North and Northeast Portland. And it's hard and it's triggering, and it's also, to be frank, it's kind of scary. I know Prosper Portland current executive director just put in her leave to go to Port of Portland, and I know just with all the changes, yes. There's a lot at stake for this election to see what it looks like, and it is my hope that I'll just share in this moment that the Prosper Portland board reflects our community a little bit more. Right now, it doesn't look like the community that I see and I spend time with around this great city. And I do hope, I'll say as a plug, I hope we open it up at the state level to be able to use the funds for some of that vision you mentioned. It's hard to only use it in a certain way when there's so many amazing things that it could generate that can keep people in place, so to speak, and help the business owners. So thank you for that.
TIF funds?
Yeah, TIF funds.
Oh yeah, I wish we could use it in more ways too. I agree.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some fun lobbying power maybe at the city and Prosper Portland to help kind of lead on what that looks like at the state level. And then again, hopefully we're going to board that reflects us. Before I move on, I want to see if there's anything else you want to share a little bit about maybe some plans or thoughts around how do we make sure we don't currently continue to displace the houseless community, and also thinking about the folks who are really vulnerable, who are close to that edge, and they're one paycheck away, one health emergency away from having to live on the streets or living in their cars or with friends and family. Anything else you want to say before we move on?
Just one last thing. There's so many things to say, but one last thing I want to make sure that not to overlook is the role of housing. And I know you mentioned that someone who might have been here before mentioned there's not much more we can do. I vehemently disagree with that. Housing directly plays a role in our resulting homeless crisis, and whether we have the tools to make it rare and brief, or if we're going to continue to perpetuate the poverty that we see on the street. And I believe that we do need housing along the continuum, but of course, primarily affordable and now middle income housing, because we do have those families that are the working poor or the working people that are at the margin and one or two paychecks away. That's how I grew up. And it's a very real fear, and it carries physiological implications that are multi-generational, primarily on BIPOC communities and low-income communities. And we need to get out of that cycle because we're dying younger, we have more health problems, and we live in parts of the city that are more impacted by environmental, you name it. And so, but I know you all know that, but I think we need to do everything we can to catalyze more housing development in those areas that we talked about. We do have enough land in this city to build more housing. Housing is expensive to build, yes, and we cannot control market forces right now. So what can the city do ourselves? Like, what is within our jurisdiction to do? There's still a lot we can do. We can look at how we reframe regulation and revisit old regulations that no longer help us, or that actually create a more expensive, project. It takes longer, and that, for an affordable housing provider, that's not actually helping. While well-intended at some point, some of these policies, we really have to do the cost-benefit analysis. And I'm not saying just dollars. I'm also saying the time, that it takes. We're losing time that we need, and that time could be better spent with a shorter process, get the housing up and going, and have people access it. So cutting through that red tape, what are some ways that we can do that? What are some ways that we can reduce the permitting time so that people don't dread, having to go through the permitting process to get something built in the city? How do we also change the incorrect narrative that Portland is not a place to invest in, and that Portland is not a place to that is not safe, right? How do we change that narrative so that people are investing and wanting to build here again? So there are multiple things to do, but we have to do them all in concert, and it takes leadership to hold that vision and drive all these multiple ways together to create the conditions where we can do those things. So we do need more housing. We need 120,000 more units over the next 20 years. So we need to get to work like now.
Yes. Thank you so much for bringing that in. And for folks watching and listening, we're talking about Reimagine Public Safety. We're here with Commissioner Rubio. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your vision for the city. I know we're doing okay on time, but I'm going to move us to question for our last long formatted question before we do some rapid fire. Also a long one, so bear with me, folks watching and listening. In a recent public meeting on violence prevention, the City of Portland evaluation specialist Ryan D'Ambrosio reported that gun violence in Portland has dropped by 22% since August of 2023. Ryan also highlighted that there is a 38% reduction in Black gun violence victims over the past year. The city is attributing this overall decline in shootings to the success of the gun violence prevention programs that receive funding from both City of Portland and statewide allocations of federal pandemic grants. There is an organization, a group of folks that I want to uplift in the moment, Healing Hurt People. It's a partnership between POIC, a Black-led nonprofit, and the city's Office of Violence Prevention. They've been doing some really, really powerful work. And for folks who may not know, they offer counseling and outreach to community members at risk of gun violence, including victims of gun violence. My question to you, you started talking about this a little bit earlier, how you prioritize the continued funding and success of community-centered programs that have proven to prevent crime.
I absolutely prioritize those because they are real programs that are affecting real change, as you outlined in the opening statement with the reduction in instances that we're seeing. And I think that's what we just have to prioritize that and keep that going. I know Joe, and I know that program very, very well as the executive director of Latino Network. I worked alongside Joe in similar programs, but for Latina community for several years. So I know his programs pretty well, and they are very effective, and we need to keep investing in them. And this is the lesson that I learned also when I worked for Mayor Potter. And we heard from folks who were very active in decreasing gun violence, particularly among Black youth in the 80s and the early 90s. And we had the upswing of violence again because there was disinvestment again. When things get better, then the funding goes down again. And we can't, that keeps repeating, and that's a lesson for all. I don't think that will happen again because we have more people who appreciate that experience or may have that lived experience themselves, who are going to be in office or are currently in office now. So I don't think my hope and my expectation is we're not going back, but it's a reminder to us about what happens when that's how disinvestment happens. When policymakers who get to walk away from that issue and go home and don't have that in their real lives, it's not present for them all the time. And so we need people to remember that, whether you have that experience or not, be conscious of that. We need that continued investment so that we can continue to see the outcomes, so that we can continue to have the presence of safety and continue to have the presence of justice in our community. So.
Thank you for that. Definitely hitting an emotional nerve to make sure that we have folks who had lived experience in this work to be closer to power, to be able to share that power, to dream up with us. So I can't stress enough that thank you for saying that. I'm checking in. We're gonna get into our rapid fire.
Okay.
This is gonna be fun.
Okay.
So I would say the biggest challenge is you only say three words,
I
of
know.
3 words, and
I'm
that's
gonna
hard.
say that's hard for me.
It's a hard one.
So,
For folks watching and listening, Commissioner Rubio can only say yes, no, or pass on some of these. I'm really excited about it. We're going to take our time going through it, but
So I can't say anything else except.
I know,
okay.
but you know what I'll do? At the very end, we'll hold some space if you want to say anything about it and
Okay.
close us out. So we'll hold that space for you.
Okay.
Okay. Let's get into it. Rapid fire section.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one, yes, no, or pass.
Really quick before we
Please,
start.
yeah.
What does the pass mean?
Great question.
Because for me, it might mean I don't know enough yet.
Yeah,
Or-
yeah.
Okay.
It can mean a number of things. It can mean I don't know enough yet.
Okay.
It could mean maybe I need to be educated on
Okay.
it. It could mean a maybe. So interpret it the way that you need to. It doesn't
Okay.
necessarily mean anything negative. It just
Okay.
means need a little more time.
Okay. So it doesn't mean dismissive pass. That was my concern. Okay.
Go for it.
I'm ready.
Okay, so let's get to it. Question 1. Will you pledge not to accept contributions from police, prison, and incarceration industry, not to seek their endorsement, and to publicly reject their independent expenditure? Yes, no, or pass?
Pass with explanation at the end.
Okay, thank you. Do you support investing in quality, affordable housing to strengthen and make communities safer?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you support investing in living wage employment opportunities to strengthen and make communities safer?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you support investing in public transportation to strengthen and make communities safer?
Yes.
See, so easy ones. We got you in there. Do you support investing in education to strengthen and make communities safer?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you support investing in healthcare that includes harm reduction, patient-driven approaches, as well as community-based mental health and substance abuse treatment to strengthen and make communities safer?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Do you support legislation banning both lethal and then non-lethal force that could cause death against individuals exercising their First Amendment rights?
Yes, or more info too.
I know it's so hard. It's so hard. Do you support legislation to remove the shield of qualified immunity in Oregon?
I'm going to say pass with explanation at the
Yeah,
end.
we got
with
some
all
time.
these. I don't know.
Do you support a ban on data sharing and all forms of collaboration between the U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, and the City of Portland bureaus, including the Portland Police Bureau?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you pledge to oppose a city budget that expands in any way the capacity of the police force?
No.
Thank you. Do you support non-carceral strategies for community safety?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you support a zero-tolerance legislation for police abusive authority and abusive policing?
Yes/pass. More
Thank you.
information.
Do you believe that the violations of property should never equate to the violation, the violation of human life?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you support putting an end to the use of military-style equipment such as grenade launchers, long-range acoustic devices, LRADs, and other technologies designed for war by the Portland Police Bureau?
Pass.
Thank you. Do you support a ban on facial recognition and predictive policing technology and other intrusive and discriminatory surveillance forms by the Portland Police Bureau? I know it's a hard one.
Yes, facial recognition. The other ones, I need more info. Pass.
Thank you. Do you support allocating resources to our most vulnerable community members, like houseless community, in ways that are not linked to over-policing or criminalizing poverty?
Yes.
Oh, you did it.
I did it.
I
Okay.
know. Thank you. Thank you for doing this with us.
Yeah. I just have 2 comments for this.
2 comments. You know what? Let's do the comments now. Go for it.
Okay, just really quick comments. The legislation, I would need to know more. I am someone that needs to know the details. So I'm very open to learning about these things in detail about what the specific legislation is on the leg right now. I'll educate myself. And then pledges, I'm not doing pledges right now. As the mayor of that oversees the police bureau, and also creates the budget, I just don't want to make any promises given the fluctuation of the budget right now. So that's where I am on pledges.
Thank you so much for that. Before I do my thank yous, we're going to put some links in our YouTube captions and things for folks to learn a little bit more. Imagine Black, we have a No Police Money in Politics pledge. We want our elected officials to continue to work with police, but to do it in a different way. So we'll put that link in there for folks who may want to learn a little bit more. But I first just want to hold some space to say thank you. Thank you to the viewers and watchers for being here with us, holding some space as we hear a little bit more from Commissioner Rubio. I want to thank you for being here. I said this a little bit earlier. It is very evident that you care about the Black community, and being here is really, I'm really grateful for that. As you may know, not all of your opponents are here, and that is because they didn't prioritize it. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank interpreters. Thank you to our amazing film crew. I want to thank the volunteers and staff for making this event, this both debate and the conversations possible. Thank you so much. I want to do some quick reminding of kind of for folks who may not know, but democracy is not a one-time event. We really need folks to be involved in this process. You heard a little bit earlier about the need to do participatory work, to hear from folks, to be able to get involved. That's only gonna work if we have folks participating. So this is my call to action to join us and getting more involved in our city government, to really participating. And hopefully with some great leadership, we'll have some easier ways of doing that. I also wanna remind folks that, there's not a perfect candidate. That doesn't exist. What we do encourage you to do is to listen, to do your own research, and to vote for a candidate you think you can push towards justice. And again, that's ongoing. It's not a one-time thing. So please, if you can, join an organization that is interested in developing leaders to do that work. We do that at Imagine Black, and we welcome you to join us. Before I do my last part of the thank yous, I want to open up to see how can folks learn more about your platforms, your campaign, how do they volunteer? Tell us a little bit more about where to find you.
Thanks for that question. So you can learn more about me by going to my website at carmenforportland.com. And you'll see my whole platform. You'll see all of my list of endorsers and what my values are as well. And also there's an opportunity to always connect with me and talk to me directly there. And you can reach me through my website.
Thank you so much for that. So as Oregon's first Black-led and Black-serving nonprofit to endorse candidates, I want to let the listeners and watchers know that we're going to be doing our candidate and ballot measure endorsements after we film this. So by the time you take a look and you're watching, we're going to be done with that process. But I want to let you know that we want to invite you to join us and learn a little bit more about us as an organization, but also about the things that we're pushing this election season. So if you can go to imagineblack.org/vote, not only will you find those endorsements, but you're also going to find out some information to help you navigate this process. So you'll find information on where to drop off your ballots, information on how to get involved in this work long term. Again, democracy is not a one-time event, so we invite you to join us. Again, my name is Joy Elise Davis. I am so honored to spend time. Thank you so much for this. I want to thank you again, viewers and listeners, for being with us. And I want to leave you with one thing. I want to remind you that a new world is waiting. A new Oregon is waiting. A new city is waiting. Help us build it. Get involved. Thank you very much, and see you soon.
At Imagine Black, we envision living in a city that loves Black people. We imagine a world where every Black person has the rights, resources, and recognition to be part of a thriving, resilient, and connected community. We are freedom dreamers. Now is the time to invest in Black liberation and self-determination. Your support is critical to this work. A donation to Imagine Black helps us maintain our capacity to affect change in the Black community. Your contributions can help us build Black voter power, advance the call to reimagine our public safety and criminal justice system, and push for a just transition from an extractive economy to a regenerative economy. We all have a role to play in the movement for Black liberation. Go to imagineblack.org/donate. Please give generously. Together, we will turn dreams into reality.